will be very serious consequences. Any efforts to disrupt traffic, to take the law into their own hands. And I think that message has to be sent clearly. And one of the things I've argued is it's very important for the NYPD to get out face-to-face with these gang members and tell them very pointedly what the consequences will be. I think we have the laws we need to address this problem right now.
Thank you,
I think it's about strong enforcement, and it's about following through and making sure there are consequences.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Loda, what would you have done in that situation?
I, too, would have defended my family with everything that I have. After you call 911, you expect the police department to show up as quickly as possible. We need to make sure that our police department is aware when gangs come into New York. One of the things that I want to do is to make sure that we change the laws. We could possibly, as put forward a piece of legislation that says no more than 6 motorcycles can gather together at one time and drive on any one of our highways or streets. That may be a possible answer to it. But what we really need to do is to make sure that the police are there and that they enforce the law as best as possible.
Mr. Loda, your campaign ad dramatically portrays mayhem in our city if Mr. de Blasio is elected. Exactly what would be reckless or dangerous about him and policing? And tell us exactly how you see the streets of New York becoming unsafe. Are we talking squeegee men, graffiti, what?
We're talking anything possible because, you know, Bill de Blasio served in the administration of David Dinkins. And during that period of time, we had 2,000 murders a year. We had, the last time we had a race riot in the city of New York. Bill, when you look at all of the proposals that he's put forward, they're not about changing the laws or having proactive policing. The reality is Mr. de Blasio, in the process of going through all this, is he is actually bringing us backwards. Look, we need to make sure that our streets are safe. We have to support the police department. We have to continue stop, question, and frisk. We need to actually change it. But what's more important is that we cannot handcuff the police department. Mr. de Blasio supports having an inspector general, which is absolutely not needed for the police department. He supports the city council bill, which actually puts onerous requirements on the police department, and it's having an extreme chilling effect on their ability to do their job. In fact, they can now be sued personally in this process. Everything that Bill de Blasio has talked about in public safety, I believe is reckless. It'll push us back to where we were.
30 seconds for rebuttal, sir.
There's a number of inaccuracies in what Mr. Loda says. He obviously doesn't understand the recent legislation. The bottom line is this: I believe in a strong NYPD, 34,000 plus officers with the tools they need to do the job, and the NYPD is doing a great job. I believe an independent inspector general is a smart form of check and balance to make sure we're doing things right, to make sure that civil liberties and individual liberties are being recognized. And there's nothing that would handcuff police. But Mr. Loda should be ashamed of an ad that tries to divide us, that's based on fear-mongering, that takes us back to the worst impulses we saw when he worked for Rudy Giuliani. We need to bring us together, not someone who's going to be a fear-mongerer and try and divide us. We've left those days behind in New York City.
30 seconds.
There's nothing divisive about that ad whatsoever. And I'm the only one standing up here who's a bipartisan person. I did work for Rudy Giuliani. I worked for him, and he was a Republican mayor who actually, I believe, began the renaissance of this city. I've also worked for Governor Andrew Cuomo. Mr. de Blasio is nothing but a partisan. All he wants to do is attack, attack, and attack. And the reality is, what this city needs is someone who will bring people together. That's what I've done my entire life, whether working for Giuliani or working for Cuomo, given difficult tasks to get the job done.
Next question is related, gentlemen.
Maurice, just a quick response. Mr. Loda was the right-hand man of Rudy Giuliani when he was going out of his way to divide this city. It was not a good period in our city's history. We should not repeat it. The ad is filled with images that try to create fear and negative feelings, and he should be ashamed of it.
Thank you, sir. Next question for you. New polling is showing that voters are much more concerned, Mr. de Blasio, with keeping the crime rate down than reforming stop and frisk. 62 to 30%. What do you say to that?
New polling showed a couple of things. It showed that voters are very concerned about keeping our city safe. Obviously, they understand the incredible strides we've made and the great work done by the NYPD, and we want to keep that going strong. I believe we can do it even better. We bring police and community back together by ending the overuse of stop and frisk and the division it's caused. But the other thing you saw in this recent poll is people believe, by a clear, wide margin, they believe that we can make the city safer and end the overuse of stop and frisk and the abuses of stop and frisk that have unfortunately caused a rift between police and community in many neighborhoods of the city. You know what? Talk to beat cops and they'll tell you. They don't want a stop and frisk quota holding them back from doing the kind of police work they were trained to do. They don't want to do racial profiling. They understand that we have to ban that practice so we can get on with the best policing practices to keep us safe. We have the best police force in the country. We have the best technology. We have the ComStat system, which is the best strategic tool for policing. Let's focus on those strengths and move away from the things that unfortunately have caused a lack of partnership between the police and community.
Thank you, sir.
That's what people in the city actually want to see. They want to see both those things achieved at once.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Loda.
This past weekend, we had 20 shootings in the city of New York. 7 people died. We need to make sure that we continue to have stop and frisk. The people understand that. There is absolutely no room in this city for racial profiling. And if any cop does racially profile, he should probably be, he should be separated from service. That said, the people of New York fully understand everything that the NYPD has done. They've done a magnificent job. They have been able to reduce our crime by 73% over the last 20 years.
Thank you, sir. Next question goes to Mr. Loda, please. We've got an hour, right? The NYPD says its surveillance of mosques and Muslim groups is legal, and it's keeping the city safe. Would you continue that program?
Yes, I would continue that program. The NYPD and Commissioner Ray Kelly, when they started this counterintelligence, counterterrorism program in the Intel Division, what he did was to make sure that the federal government in the Handshoe Agreement was updated to not only look at internal but also external terrorists. Here's what the police are allowed to do, and they're doing this in conjunction with the United States Justice Department. They are allowed to follow targets. That target may go into a supermarket, so they'll follow them into the supermarket. That target may go into a mosque or a church or a temple, and they'll follow them into that house of religion. The reality is they are not going after entire communities. They are going after individuals, and they're following those individuals into various different meetings. Mr. de Blasio and I get the same briefings from the NYPD. I understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and believe me, they have kept us safe over the last 12 years. We have had 16 different terrorist incidents thwarted by the NYPD.
Thank you, sir. Mr. de Blasio, you get 1 minute. Same question.
Very quickly, on the previous point, because it's pertinent to this question as well. According to police statistics, 90% of the people currently stopped are innocent in every way, shape, and form. That's why the stop and frisk policy, as it's currently created, doesn't work, because it's reaching the wrong people and it's creating alienation between police and community when we need partnership and a close working relationship between police and community. That's also important for fighting terror. Look, NYPD has done an incredible job at keeping us safe from terror. We have 1,000 officers on anti-terror duty, and that's exactly the right thing to do. But when it comes to protecting the balance between public safety and civil liberties, our U.S. Constitution obliges us to work every single day to strike that balance the right way. I say very clearly, if surveillance is based on specific leads, it is appropriate. But if it's not based on specific leads, it may not be, and that's why we need an independent inspector general to make sure there's the kind of checks and balances that, by the way, we have at the CIA, the FBI, and almost every major police department in the country. That kind of oversight is healthy and will help the NYPD to do its job better and work more closely with the communities it serves.
Here's what's wrong with the Inspector General legislation that went past and was passed by the City Council. All of the agencies that you talked about, the FBI, the CIA, the MTA had an Inspector General. The MTA's Inspector General, as with all the others, did not have the right to question the boss's strategy and decisions. But this Inspector General at City Council can, in fact, question the strategies and the approach and the tactics of the police commissioner and his entire command. That is wrong. An Inspector General, you want him to audit? Great. You want him to inspect? Great. You want him to question the strategy? That's wrong. That's the job of the mayor. And you, as a candidate for mayor, should allow that responsibility to stay with the mayor.
Let me be clear on this, Maurice.
15 seconds, please.
Of course, it is the mayor's job to choose the right police commissioner and then to lead and manage that police commissioner. But an independent inspector general has been proven to work at the CIA, FBI, and every major police department in the country because they question policies that may not be working. There's nothing wrong with checks and balances. It's the American way.
Okay, gentlemen.
And independent oversight is healthy for the NYPD.
Gentlemen, thank you. Let's move on. Mr. de Blasio, your big idea, universal pre-K, and you say popular support will force Albany to raise taxes on people making $500,000 a year or more, from 3.8 to 4.3% or so. But it's going to be an election year, right, for state lawmakers. Governor Cuomo says it's not happening.
Well, that's not accurate.
Dead on arrival.
Respectfully.
That's what he said.
Respectfully, that's not what he said. There's a quote in the paper the other day where he says he would keep an open mind on this issue.
If it doesn't work out, sir, what's your plan B?
As I said, Governor Cuomo said, he said it to me, he said it in the papers, he would keep an open mind on the issue. I've said very clearly, we're going to get a tax on people who make $500,000 or more, so we can have full-day pre-K for every child in the city, so we can have after-school programs for every middle school child, so we can bring our school system up to date, so we can lighten the burden on parents all over the city, so we can prepare our kids for the 21st century economy. We have to do it. It's strategically crucial. Now, I believe the combination of the fact that people want these improvements in our schools, they want the support for parents, and they believe it's fair to ask the wealthy to do a little more. Those who are doing very well, $500,000 or more, are actually doing better all the time. You see what's going on with the stock market? It's been very, very strong in recent months.
Sir, if it doesn't happen,
we can safely say that there will be tremendous popular support, and it's clear to me that we can go to Albany with the wind in our sails of that popular support and get this plan
passed. Sir, if it doesn't happen, is it a 5-year plan? This is an election year coming up.
It's a 5-year plan for full-day pre-K and after school for every middle school child. And the point is, if we want to get this done, we have to focus on the positive notion that this is what the people want, and we can prevail upon Albany. You know, New York City has gone up to Albany many times and said, this is what our city needs. It's part of how we got our police force and the numbers that we needed to fight crime.
We got it, sir.
And the history is we get it passed in Albany.
Mr. Loda, same topic, your thoughts.
Bill de Blasio doesn't have a plan B. He just told you by talking as long as he did without ever giving you a plan B. He makes promises that he knows he can't keep. And I heard the words of Andrew Cuomo. I'm the one who most recently worked for him. He was crystal clear. This is dead on arrival. The reality is Bill de Blasio makes promises over and over that he can't keep. You know, in downtown Brooklyn, where we now have a new athletic facility, Bill de Blasio was instrumental in making sure that that developer built affordable housing. Well, it's been 2 years now since the Barclays Center has opened, and they're not even in the ground with affordable housing. You know why? Bill de Blasio keeps taking contributions from Bruce Ratner. Bruce Ratner actually paid for his 50th birthday party. The reality is he makes promises he can't keep. We need universal pre-K, but we're not going to get it through a tax increase. We need it, and we need it now.
You know, Maurice, I have to respond. 2 quick points. One, if we're going to get anything done to help children, to help families, we have to be bold, we have to be progressive, we have to be visionary. Mr. Loda says he wants to address early child education, but he hasn't offered a plan to actually come up with the revenue to do it. We need the independent revenue. And the only way we're going to get it is by building the public support and saying this is a priority for the people of New York City. On the question of affordable housing, I have fought for the kind of development that would maximize affordable housing in this city. I haven't seen Mr. Loda focus on trying to develop more affordable housing for the people of this city.
Let's finish.
So the point is, I am proud of the fact that that development will, when it's done, yield thousands of units for affordable housing for the people of Brooklyn. I'll make sure it happens.
Well, let's finish on pre-K here. 30 seconds to rebut that, Mr. Loda.
Look, on the pre-K issue, you can pay for it. Right now, Bill wants to raise by charging taxes on the rich. And by the way, if you're in the middle class, hold on to your wallet, because no one has ever been able to just tax the rich. The reality is we need universal pre-K. The amount of money that Bill wants to raise is somewhere between $500 and $550 million. That's less than 1% of the entire budget. When I was the budget director, I used to get 3 and 4% savings every year to allow Mayor Giuliani and Speaker Peter Vallone the opportunity to expand programs just like this.
Okay.
I'll find a budget director who will do an even better job than I did.
Thank you, sir.
But coming to affordable housing, let me tell you something.
We'll get to that.
For 5 years, I did nothing but finance low and moderate income housing.
He also is talking about tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations that will blow a hole in the city budget, a $2 billion hole in the city budget, according to the New York Times. So Mr. Loda shouldn't kid around about the ability to find money for early childhood if he's offering tax cuts to the wealthy and corporations.
We'll get to that in just a moment. Mr. de Blasio, one more thought here. Many middle-class and affluent New Yorkers are concerned you're going to raise taxes, right? They scare businesses and drive down the tax base. What do you say to them?
I think asking those who make $500,000 or more for their tax rate to go from 3.9% to 4.4%, which is less than the tax rate Michael Bloomberg set for high-income people 10 years ago. I think it's fair. In fact, I think it'll make it a better city for everyone, including the wealthy, over the long term, because we'll have a better school system. We'll have a stronger workforce. We'll have a stronger social fabric if we provide full-day pre-K and we provide after-school programs. So I would argue it's in the interest of all. But I emphasize this is a modest increase in taxes on the wealthy. In fact, it will not only make us stronger as a city in terms of our children, our families, it will give us a better business climate, because one of the things that business leaders care the most about is that there's a strong educational system and a strong workforce, and this will give us the foundation to do that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Loder, rebut.
I'm very concerned about the way Mr. de Blasio thinks. Let me tell you what I think regarding tax increases. Anybody who tells you that they're only going to tax the rich always ends up taxing the middle class. So for those of you out there, the middle class, hold on to your wallets. But let me tell you something else. I actually believe having safe streets is a civil right. I believe having greater schools, better schools, excellent schools is a civil right. Raising taxes, that's a civil wrong, and Mr. de Blasio doesn't know the difference between a civil right and a civil wrong.
Maurice, just quickly.
15 seconds.
Mr. Loda is offering a Republican trickle-down vision of tax cuts for the wealthy, tax cuts for corporations. Again, New York Times said it would blow a $2 billion hole in our annual budget. So he's saying, watch out, taxes will grow. Well, I've been very clear. I will tax people who make $500,000 or more. Mr. Loda is rushing to give those same wealthy people a tax cut, to give big corporations a tax cut. That's a danger to the future.
I'm not giving big corporations a tax cut. They have to create jobs. They have to create jobs, and the jobs will go to the unemployed and those who are underemployed, better paying jobs. No one believes that a tax cut is just going to be giving away money to the rich.
Mr. Loda,
gentlemen, we're going to move on.
You talk about classic Republican bait and switch. It is trickle down.
We're going to move on. Thank you, sir. Mr. Loda, regarding charter schools, what do you say to parents of public school students who feel their kids are being squeezed out of their own buildings by co-location of charter schools in those buildings?
Charter schools are not squeezing anyone out of regular public schools. Every single charter school that I've been to that's in a public school and co-located, it's generally on the top floor or in the basement. And when you ask the question, what was it before? It was a place where they stored books or they stored materials. The reality is we need to expand the number of charter schools. Our teachers need to be able to get the proper professional development and training. And our parents absolutely need school choice. The reason why parents marched on the Brooklyn Bridge a few weeks ago is because Mr. de Blasio is threatening to annihilate our charter schools. And they believe it. You start charging them rent, they're gone. If you start charging them or not allowing them to co-locate in schools, it is wrong. Believe me, charter schools are public schools, and we have to understand that. We have to respect that. And what we really need to do is look at the entire system and make the entire system better. Charter schools is not just the answer. Making sure that we have excellent schools all the way across the board is what I will do as mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Loda. Mr. de Blasio, 93% of the kids are in charter schools are black or Hispanic. Same topic here. Their parents are thrilled at this opportunity. Some of the schools outperform public schools on standardized testing and graduation rates. So then the question would be, why would you want to rein them in?
First, as to Mr. Loda's fear-mongering, his constant tactic, I don't want to annihilate charter schools. I've said we should work with the current charter school cap, that good charter schools will continue to work with, that charter schools who aren't doing their job, we're going to push them to do better and to be more inclusive of every type of child. And ones that are very wealthy should pay some rent. That's what I've said. Ones that don't have a lot of money shouldn't. So look. First of all, it's clear from the answer Mr. Loda gave, he hasn't spent a lot of time recently in public schools, because charter schools often get, in co-locations, the very best parts of the schools, and they often do dislocate the needs of the existing traditional public school. That's a fact, and that's why there's been such feeling and concern from public school parents. Folks want to make sure if another school is coming into their school building where they're the most precious thing in the child, that it's going to be handled right, that their child is not going to lose out. The charter school happened to have more power and influence, and during the Bloomberg years, charter schools did have more power and influence. So I've simply said they're not going to be favored anymore. I'll work with them, but they're not going to be favored anymore. 95% of our kids go to traditional public schools, as my kids did.
Thank you, sir.
95%. That's where we have to focus our attentions.
Thank you, sir. Let's move on. Mr. Loda, you say you want to build a new version of Battery Park City on Manhattan's East Side. Wouldn't that mean extending a landfill out into the East River? And given how Sandy floodwaters overwhelmed our shoreline, most notably places like NYU and Bellevue hospitals, how is building on the shore feasible, much less a good idea?
It is a very good idea, and it's wrong, Maurice, to say that it would be done with landfill. We have numerous places where we're excavating through the rock in the city of New York. We have the 2nd Avenue subway, which will continue in the second phase. They do nothing but pull out rock. We need to use that rock to be able to protect our shores and move the island out. We don't need to do it with landfill. You know, Battery Park City wasn't built with landfill. Battery Park City was built with the dirt that was taken out to build the underground at the World Trade Center. There's no landfill there. That's dirt that came from Manhattan. So it's wrong to consider it landfill, making people think that it's garbage or refuge or anything like that. Look, the idea of building out on the East River, here's why I think it's so important. I was downtown on that Monday night almost a year ago, and the flooding that happened downtown excluded Battery Park City. It was higher up. The reason why the flooding had a problem is at the very tip of the island, it came in, and it came in at a lower level. We need to build up the entire island to protect our assets and to protect human life.
Thank you, sir. 30 seconds to rebut.
Sure. I'm going to do one of those shocking, amazing things, Maurice, and generally agree with Joe Lota.
Just generally?
Yeah, just okay. Because I think it's called Seaport City, if I remember correctly, is the proposal the mayor made. It's not a bad idea. I think it's an ambitious idea. It's not what I would say is the first most important thing to do in terms of resiliency. I've said, and again, I don't have a lot of trouble disagreeing with Michael Bloomberg when I think he's wrong, but on resiliency, I actually think he's right. I think the resiliency plan he put forward is a blueprint for the future of this city. The focus on restoring wetlands, restoring dunes, having portable barriers. I think this is a lot of the right things. It's the affordable approach, especially with the federal aid we expect. Okay. I think Seaport City could be part of the solution. I think it is difficult, could be expensive, but I think it could also be something that ultimately improves the safety and resiliency of the city if we could find a way to fund it.
I think when we were saying...
It's the only thing that Bloomberg put forward in that report that will pay for itself with the real property taxes that both the residential housing, the mixed-use residential housing, and the commercial buildings would put there. All the rest of that report costs $20 billion.
Thank you. And I think when we were saying landfill, we were talking about the same thing.
And Maurice, we had our kumbaya moment. I hope you just want to say for the record.
This is it right now. Regarding federal Sandy aid, Mr. de Blasio, you have stated you have 3 priorities with this federal money: living wage jobs, affordable housing, and health needs of the community long term. Now, this was hard-fought money, as you know. It took a mighty effort to get it from Congress, as you know. How is it appropriate to redirect such funds when the money was specified to help victims recover from Sandy?
Maurice, to be clear, this is all for victims. Everything I talked about for of Sandy and areas of the city that were affected by Sandy. What I'm saying is, you know, for example, in many parts of the city that were very old public housing, more duress because of what happened. Sandy, the Rockaways, Island, that were hurting already. Everything pitch black at night, no electricity, people really suffering from the experience in so many ways. What I'm saying is let's take the federal aid and, of course, do the fundamental work of resiliency and recovery we have to do, but let's make sure in the process people who were affected by Sandy have the first opportunity for those jobs. People who were affected by Sandy have an opportunity to get better affordable housing in the process. We have to do a lot with that federal money coming in. It's a crucial moment in this city's history to get some things right and to right some wrongs. Particularly the Rockaways are a classic example.
Thank you, sir.
A neighborhood for so many years by city government. So I think it's crucial to maximize the use of that money on behalf of the people affected.
Thank you. Mr. Loder, 30 seconds to rebut.
Mr. de Blasio's answer is evolving, because what he did say in the Rockaways 3 weeks ago was exactly what you said, Maurice. Let's use it for other things other than the repair and the replacement of what was destroyed in Hurricane Sandy. Immediately after that, the folks in the Rockaways were completely up in arms. The people out in Staten Island, the South Shore of Staten Island, where homes are still devastated, where people are not back into their homes, that money used for what the state of the city repair and replace. That's what that money should be used for. The funding it. This is money that's going to go back budget to make sure that we don't have a hole in it. I'm just concerned Mr. de Blasio's efforts to do other things are going to destroy the entire process.
15 seconds,
it's not going to destroy Mr. Loda not using destroy the process. We're talking about how to use this money to help the people affected. For example, folks on the South Shore of Staten Island lost their homes, lost their businesses, lost a huge amount of money just surviving since Sandy. Let's get them some of the job opportunities created by this federal aid. What I'm saying is, I don't want to see a lot of good work done and all the money flow to out-of-state contractors, for example. I want to make sure that the spending we do maximally helps the affected and gives them a little more economic. We can do both.
Thank you, sir. Vaughn. Mr. Loder, Bloomberg and police, mall. What kind of talk is that for? And is that the kind of thing we could expect for 4 years if you win?
It's not.